Good morning. You'll see from our economic and fiscal plan that under a national government, New Zealand has a bright and prosperous future. With the right economic policy, we can grow and rebuild our economy from the biggest economic downturn in living memory. Right now, New Zealand is in a worrying space. Government books reveal 15 years of deficits and low growth. Treasury says 100,000 more New Zealanders will soon lose their jobs. New Zealanders are facing a critical decision. National is providing New Zealanders with a choice. How do we respond to this crisis? How do we respond to a forecast of 15 years of deficits, low growth and high unemployment? Do we grow our way out, or do we tax and spend? Labour's only solution is to tax more and spend more. But taxing our way out of a recession is not the answer. There is a better way. Labour's plan is to spend billions of dollars on make-work schemes. I don't want to spend your money like that. There is a better way. Earlier this year, I had stated I didn't plan to cut taxes, but that was before the second lockdown. The forecast of 15 years of deficit has confirmed our economy is in a very bad state. It's clear that you need to keep more of your money so you can invest and grow. We need a short-term stimulus package and we need it quickly. A national government will pass emergency tax relief. A national's tax relief will mean the average income earner keeps $3,000 more in their pocket. We believe you can grow the economy better than government. This will be a 16-month tax stimulus package that will put $50 each week in the pocket of the average Kiwi earner. A family with 2 full-time average earners will have $6,000 more to spend and invest under a national government. In addition, business investment and confidence must be lifted. I will allow businesses to immediately deduct new investments up to $150,000. And that's not all. I will double the depreciation rates for all plant, equipment and machinery when businesses invest over $150,000 in growing business and the economy. This is a huge incentive for business to invest in our future and spend money. We want businesses to invest, to grow and employ. And we will do our bit. We will invest over $31 billion in New Zealand infrastructure, the largest infrastructure package New Zealand has ever seen. It will create jobs, it will grow productivity, and it will build the economy. Because we are in an economic crisis. Thousands of Kiwis are losing jobs. Businesses are closing. Families are struggling. Keeping more money in people's pockets is the right thing to do. National will grow our economy and we can reduce debt faster. We will not burden future generations with increased debt and higher taxes. We will deliver higher growth and better infrastructure. And we will boost investment in core public services each and every year with a focus on health and education. We will not waste your money on Kiwi build and fees free. We will unshackle businesses to invest, and we will push back the red tide of regulation, starting with the RMA. Labour can't balance the books for 15 years, and we can do it in 8. My plan is a better way. With a national government, you will have more money in your pocket, you will have a stronger economy, and your children will inherit a country with better infrastructure and less debt. There is a better way.
I'll just add to that, look, we have every confidence that this great country will get back on track. We will restore our prosperity once again, and we'll have an economy that can provide opportunities for New Zealanders. But it will take hard work, and it will take competence and problem-solving attitude at the border, and a relentless focus on economic growth along with improved productivity. With National's ambitious economic policies, we'll get back on our feet faster. And this October, New Zealanders have a choice for our economic response to COVID-19 between ever more government programs from Labour and the Greens or more money in their pockets from National. We'll back the workers of New Zealand, men and women who get up early each day to provide for themselves and their families, and during this difficult time, we'll provide some tax relief. It's clear that New Zealand is in for a tough year in 2021. We will need more stimulus to avoid prolonging the recession and to reduce the economic and social scarring that the Treasury predicts. The fairest and most efficient way to avoid that scarring is through the tax system by putting more money in New Zealanders' pockets from the 1st of December. We'll ignite the economy with a 16-month tax stimulus that will put $3,000 into the pocket of an average earner over the next 16 months. Not only will we back Kiwis, we'll also back businesses in New Zealand, large and small, to drive job creation and productivity improvements that we need to create more opportunities for New Zealanders and higher incomes. And our leader has talked about the increased allowances for write-offs that we've introduced. We'll also push back the tide against regulation with the RMA, and we'll focus very much on reducing costs, regulation and uncertainty that's preventing the private sector to invest right now. Our commitment to delivering infrastructure extends to world-class schools, classrooms and roads. Now is the time to invest in better learning environments for future generations. But unlike Labour, we do recognise the need to act responsibly for future generations by restoring public debt to prudent levels over the next decade or so that we are prepared for future shocks and taxes don't need to rise. So what we've got is a very careful, considered balance between providing stimulus in the short term, continuing to invest in public services and reducing debt over the medium term. Thank you very much.
Judith Collins, is this an almighty election drive?
No, actually, it's a time for us to put confidence and faith back in businesses and in New Zealanders. It is really important that New Zealanders and businesses are out there investing, having more money in their pockets, actually making decisions to grow the economy. That is absolutely crucial. We haven't seen business lack of confidence as it is quite like anything we've got at the moment. And that is going to hold back people getting jobs, and it's going to hold back people investing. I think this is absolutely the right thing to do. It's a better way.
Is that a responsible sacrifice to make it, given the pressures coming on the superannuation with the Asian?
Well, look, we greatly support the Super Fund. They're doing a good job there. But we don't think at a time when we're taking on enormous amounts of debt that we need to be borrowing even more to put that money on international stock exchanges. We want to put that money into the hands of New Zealanders right now.
What is that going to make in your forecasts in terms of a government's ability to pay for those costs out of the Super Fund?
Well, the Super Fund has always been part of the superannuation funding. Of course, the National Party has made a decision around increasing the age in 15, 16, 17 years' time in order to make that superannuation still affordable. We stand fully behind superannuation for all New Zealanders, and that can be managed if we have a strong and productive economy, and that's what we need to focus on.
Raising the age of super earlier?
Yes, we've got no intention to do that.
Can you today categorically rule out any cuts to health, education and social spending?
Absolutely. What we've allowed for in this budget is an extra $1.8 billion of additional spending in each budget, and that more than adequately allows for continued investment in core public sector services. So the important thing at a time like this is to provide those services so that New Zealanders can have confidence, but we also, over the extended period of time, by being a little bit more disciplined than Labour, can get our debt under control.
Well, we're spending more on health and education. $1.8 billion is the amount that we've got for the allowance to be able to do that. But let's put it this way. we're not going to be wasting people's money, and people can be absolutely assured that we will be looking at how we spend their money, understanding that it's their money, it's our New Zealanders' money, and we need to be very careful with it.
Sorry, well, this was
I think that people will feel about a package, which, yeah, it's good cash now, but then come March 2022, they will actually, have that increase, they won't be benefited.
well, it's a temporary tax cut, and it's a lot better than they'll be getting from Labor, which is nothing.
Is it a short-term sugar hit that lacks long-term vision? Does it short-term sugar hit that lacks long-term vision?
Well, the point of the thing is it's a stimulus. What we're seeing right now is that New Zealand is in a deep economic hole. And I think if you'll see commentary all around the board is that we need further stimulus at this time. It's really the second lockdown that underscored the need for it, not just in terms of the jobs lost and the businesses under pressure during the second lockdown, but also the real impact that that's had on business confidence and New Zealanders' confidence. Are we going to be going in and out of lockdowns? Now, obviously, we want to do everything we can to avoid that, but that is having a real toll on the economy, and that's why a short-term stimulus is so important to reduce the damage.
How do you
respond to the criticism that by this largely benefiting medium to upper income earners, they'll bank the savings, so they won't actually spend it in the economy, whereas if lower people get more money, they're more likely to actually spend it?
Well, we've targeted this very much at the average income earner in New Zealand, who gets about $64,000, and they will benefit the most in percentage terms from this project. And we back people who work hard, get up in the morning to provide for themselves and their families, and we want to put some more money in their pockets. And we're confident that they'll spend it.
And those are your nurses, your teachers, your police officers. They're all getting a big benefit out of this, and it's because they need it.
But that spending would be rendered.
Will that be stimulatory, or would something targeted at the lower end, create more stimulus in the economy?
Well, everybody will get something from this, and we trust New Zealanders to have more money in their pocket to be able to make choices about where to put that money. Look, the government's doing lots of stimulus with shovel-ready projects, and some of that's good, but there comes a point where you're actually just shoveling money out the door not very effectively, and we trust New Zealanders to be able to spend that money.
Given the fact that this package is so overtly targeted at economic stimulus, will you be asking New Zealanders, as Janae was saying, to instead of putting this money in the bank, to actually literally go out and spend?
Well, we'll be trusting them to decide what to do with their own money. That's the whole point of tax relief. But I'm sure this will certainly help, particularly those hospitality and tourism sectors, which are really struggling. And with more money in their pocket, New Zealanders will be able to make those.
But also businesses who are wanting to buy plant, equipment, machinery to grow their business. The only way that they can access the benefit of this is to spend that money by investing in plant machinery, and that is actually going to drive the economy as well. This is giving they don't get the benefit of it if they don't invest in their own business.
But back to middle New Zealanders, would your advice to them, as Mr. Goldsmith was saying in terms of restaurant and hospitality, is to go out and spend it rather than to bank it?
Well, they can decide what they want to do with their extra money.
The other was going to move on prior to COVID, and in effect of doing that now for 16-month package. Surely if the economy recovers well over that period, you would just leave it in place. How come it's able to actually fall in this back?
Well, it's a temporary tax cut at the moment. Of course, obviously, we'd love to be able to keep it permanently, but we can't promise that now, given the state of the books. But we hope that New Zealand does well. Beyond that, there is the adjustments for thresholds, which is more modest. But obviously, a national government instinctively wants to reduce the tax burden. What we've announced here right now is a short-term stimulus. And we hope that will reduce the damage that we're going to see over the next couple of years.
How likely is it that it will be a permanent change?
Cuts are being funded out of the COVID rainy day fund. So the obvious question is, what happens if COVID comes back?
Well, 4.7 billion of the tax cuts is funded out of the COVID fund. We've allowed another 4 billion for potential spending. And then we're working on the assumption that we'll be able to use the rest of it to pay off debt. Look, obviously, if we have to, so we've got about $9 billion available in the COVID fund as it stands. Obviously, if we go into another heavy lockdown, we may have to adjust, but we are obviously going to do everything we possibly can to avoid that.
We're also backing our border policy, which will be coming out very soon. So we're backing that we can keep it out. Yep.
Your operating allowances have been cut to, at some points just over 60% of what they were in the preview. The highest is to 75% of what they are in the preview. How can you say that there won't be cuts to essential services when you're trimming new spending, you're taking an axe to new spending?
We're not taking an axe to new spending, taking it from an average of 2.4 billion to 1.8 billion is, I think, what New Zealanders would expect from a national government, more careful with their new spending. And we'll be focused on getting good results for that spending. That's the critical thing.
That new spending, education super are included, but that new spending is going towards cost pressure increases in critical areas like health. So how can you make sure that those critical spending increases to maintain service levels of health, which is already, bursting at the seams, how can you say that there won't be actual cuts to services when you've trimmed your operating allowances so severely?
Well, because we still have plenty of scope with $1.8 billion a year. Interesting, that was roughly about what Labor were predicting to spend 3 years ago. As it turns out, they blew those allowances terribly and they couldn't control their spending. The national governments in the past have had a great track record of maintaining discipline around day-to-day spending. And we back ourselves to be able to get better value out of our 1.8 billion than a Labor government would get out of 2.4.
Judith Collins, are you worried that Shane Plenty wants your job?
No, do you know what? I think he's outstanding. He's been a great leader in health, and one day he may well be a leader of the National Party. But you know what? It's so good to have a party with such talent. I mean, honestly, wouldn't you rather have him as your Minister of Health?
Is it a bit unnerving to have someone in your caucus talking about being a privilege to be the leader?
It is a privilege to be the leader, and I'm very, very grateful that Shane understands just what a privilege it is. And do you know what? We're focused on the economy, and we're focused on the fact that the current government failed at the border, let COVID back in, and then has only taken, how many weeks to admit it? Very clearly, we have great talent in our caucus. I'm really grateful to have a caucus like that.
Have you spoken to Dr. Shane about his leadership ambitions?
No, I haven't, but I'm absolutely happy to speak to a lot of people about leadership ambitions, but his leadership ambition at the moment is very focused on health.
How likely are these tax changes to be? How likely are they to become permanent?
Well, it's going to depend very much on, as Paul has said, on how things go with the economy. We are extremely positive about what we can do with New Zealanders for our economy. This is a time to back Kiwis. It is not a time to look backwards. It's a time to look forwards, and it's a time to back New Zealanders to make the right choices. They want leadership. They don't want a nanny state.
And the big end of town benefits, don't they, popping 4K with these tax cuts?
Look, I think if you think people on $60,000, $70,000, $80,000 are rich, I don't agree.
About the 90.
Yeah, look, this is focused primarily on middle New Zealand. Trying to put more money in their pockets because we think people who work hard to look after themselves and their family need a bit of support.
It's the wealthiest New Zealanders who are taking.
I don't think nurses, teachers or police officers would tell you that they think they're the wealthiest New Zealanders. Actually, they need a break. They have the highest marginal tax rates at the moment. They need a break. They need the money, and we need them to have it.
Could you go into a little bit more detail about these walking back of your debt targets? You were initially, as early as yesterday, saying 30%, and then today we find out that it's actually 35%, and you called it not practical or feasible. Did you just come to that realization after looking at pre-foo, or should you have known this for longer?
I think what was becoming obvious after the second lockdown, as I say, not just in the impact that's directly had on jobs and on businesses, but the impact that it's had on business confidence and the lack of business confidence and the concern. We were becoming increasingly obvious that the scale of the challenge was getting bigger. And pre-foo confirmed that, and the numbers in pre-foo in terms of debt were much worse. And so we've taken what we think is a fairly pragmatic step, which to say, look, it was never a religious conviction. It was a desire to reduce our debt faster than the Labor government is. And our plan right now is still substantially faster than Labor to reduce debt.
But if it was becoming increasingly obvious after the second lockdown, why were you as early as yesterday still saying 30% or so?
Well, because we were just waiting until this announcement today, where we've just put all the latest calculations together, and this is a package that we think strikes the right balance. It's a very careful balancing exercise between the need to stimulate, the need to continue to invest in public services, and the need over the longer term to pay down debt, and we think we've got that balance right.
Judith Collins, how do you think voters will react to this policy? Do you think it'll be enough to get voters across the line for National?
I think it's going to say to voters, I think a lot of voters are going to say this, thank goodness that National is there with a plan that is actually aspirational, a plan that backs Kiwis and a plan that backs our economies. I think New Zealanders are going to say, thank you, National, for backing us.
Ms Collins, it's Surveyor Maori this week.
Yes, it
and
is.
I'm not sure if you've made commitments towards the Maori language. Have you? And what are your ambitions for the Maori language? How many speakers would you like to get there?
Do you know, I think that people in New Zealand are already learning Te Reo. Certainly younger people in particular are, and there are some other people who have chosen to do so. I just think whoever does, I absolutely support them doing that. And I also think too is that that's why I'm so focused on and very excited about our commitment to education, to have a second language available to all New Zealand children. And I think many schools and many parents will choose and children will choose Te Reo. I think that's a great thing. Obviously, it's something that when I was at school, it was French and German. But for many New Zealanders now, Te Reo is now very much part of their vocabulary.
Do you share the government's ambition to get to 1 billion speakers?
Do you know, I just think at the moment we have to look at everybody wanting to learn a language. We can't force people to learn a language. And the big focus at the moment is very much on the economy. And I think that having more Te Reo speakers will certainly not hurt the economy, and it is most likely going to help the economy. But I think really, today, it's all about the economy.
Just on that, I mean, you make that point. Does that mean that today's announcement is National's flagship election policy?
Absolutely, this is a big policy. This is about helping New Zealanders have more money in their pockets. It's going to stimulate the economy and get us back on track faster.
Yeah, it's a great policy.
When did National decide on the tax changes?
Well, we've been working for some time on it, and we were certainly thinking, you know, around the thresholds, what we could do on that. And the second lockdown made it very clear that we needed to have a really big policy that was going to actually really help New Zealanders. Seeing those the forecasts, well, that just confirmed our view that things had absolutely gone to hell in a handbasket under the current people.
And so you expect this will be the policy that will win the election?
I think that this will certainly be one of the policies. I think as well. It's including, of course, the big infrastructure spends as well, which we've already talked about. But the fiscal policy today, it's all about getting more money in people's pockets. And I would say to every police officer, teacher and nurse, there's no one's going to back you like we will.
In terms of stimulating the economy, did you throw around ideas around perhaps giving out vouchers for people to travel or spend at restaurants or that sort of thing as a way of supporting those?
Yeah, look, there's a wide range of ideas that have been tossed around, but fundamentally we think the simplest and tidiest thing to do is just to leave more money in people's pockets, and they can decide how to spend it and how to look after themselves and their families. And we want to encourage hard-working Kiwis to make the most of their opportunities.
How are you going to spend it if you do get elected?
Well, I don't know. Times are tough. I've got.
You've got 4 children.
Yeah.
They'll spend it for them.
How are you going to spend it?
Well, I hadn't even thought about it, you know. My big thing is I already help the economy. Every chance I get, I'll probably buy something.
I'll be so busy being Minister of Finance I won't have time to do anything.
That's right.
Will the repeal of ring fencing and the changes to Bright Line reignite property speculation?
Well, I think what it will do, it will reignite people wanting to be landlords, and it will get more rental houses on the market for tenants. That's really important. What we've seen under the Labour government is having promised that they were going to keep prices or stabilise house prices, a 27% increase in the 3 years that they've been around. We can't afford to have another Labour government.
Have minimum wage workers got a raw deal out of this? They'll only save $8 a week.
Well, like I say, this is absolutely focused on the average income earners in New Zealand. Those earning around $60,000 will get the maximum benefit in percentage terms, and we think that's striking the right balance and encouraging hard-working Kiwis to have more money to spend in their pocket.
Do you think in a recession that a double income family earning $180,000 are the ones that need $8,000 worth of relief?
Look, any tax changes, obviously, if you pay more tax, then that has a bigger influence. But like I say, we've had an absolute focus on trying to get that narrowed in on the middle income earners of New Zealand. And and if you've got two average income earners earning 60-odd thousand each, that family will be $6,000 better off over the next 16 months, and we think that will make a real difference.
That's not necessarily true, though. You could just raise the bottom threshold and not change the top threshold, which would target that support more at lower income earners, and then keep taxes relatively
and we think our threshold strikes the right balance.
What do you think of ACT's draft budget? Anything there that you'd like to do? I think $15 to $20 billion worth of expenses shaved off in the next couple of years.
Haven't studied it in great detail. We're focused on our policies.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you.